Good morning and welcome back to Sewing Street. I'm John Cole Morgan and I am so excited. It's block of the week and block 11 of our block of the week. So if any of you haven't done our block of the week before or seen our block of the week, we are making this fabulous 66-inch by 82.5-inch quilt. It is so exciting. I am so looking forward to showing this to you today. The block that we're doing today is, and I've probably got my mic caught on that there, is this block here. Really, really exciting. Lots and lots of half square triangles. I gave you your break last week with your log cabin, so we're back onto the half square triangles this week, which I'm really excited for. So let me show you what you're going to get with the block of the week. We've got 3 colorways. This colorway here is the Brights colorway here. That's what I'm going to be doing the demo in today. We've also got our blues colorway over here. So the blues colorway, you can see the block that we're making today is over there. That's our block we're making today in the blue colorway. And of course I put the quilt on upside down over here, and I'm going to just do this. There we go. This is the vintage colorway, and that's our block over there. Now, if you want to see what we've done so far, if you haven't taken part with us already, make sure you have a little look now at our blocks. You can see the blocks there. They're numbered as the number of blocks that we've made of each one. That's our blue colorway. So now, if you haven't joined us before, and haven't joined in on the block of the week before, and you'd like to, don't worry, you are able to take part now very, very comfortably. You'll be able to get your all your different blocks and get it all delivered to you. That's very, very easy to do. And that will come through to you in one giant bundle, which is great. So all the previous blocks, all the previous bundles, all the previous YouTube videos, everything is still available for you online. Doesn't matter if you're a bit behind or you're just starting, you can still take part. Everything is still available, so you don't have to worry about missing out because you can just join in now. Yep. Well, every single week we've got this sort of little competition between ourselves to say which one's going to win this week. And again, we've got the fabulous vintage block that has been selling incredibly well today as well. It's just a really, really great colorway. Everybody seems to really enjoy that. And it's just been selling incredibly well. Now, if you haven't done any yet, please don't worry in the slightest. You will easily be able to catch up. There is no rush. You don't have to worry, because some of you are still checking out on block 1, and that's absolutely fine. You will easily be able to catch up. You don't have to worry about not having taken part yet. You will easily catch up, so never worry about that. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just laying out some of the pieces that I've sewn together, because obviously we've done a lot of half square triangles through this process, and you don't all want to see the half square triangles every single week. So what I try to do each week is I do half the half square triangles beforehand, and then I do them some of them on air so that you can still see. Now, each of you will be getting a set of panels and instructions with your blocks. So let me show you what you're going to get. First of all, you're going to get this wonderful set of instructions. Every single block, every single panel will have this. You've got the wonderful set of instructions there, loads of pictures, loads of cutting things, exactly what you need to do to make it. So you'll get this with each of the colorways. The first one we're going to do is the Brights colorway. So let me show you the Brights. This is the panel you're going to get. So the great thing is you're not going to go wrong with any of this because you've got the lovely video for you to refer back to. This is what you're going to get for block 11. That's the panel there. So this is what each of the panels will come in and be the same design, the same layout. You're going to get more of one color one week and more of another color another week. That's totally, totally normal. The only thing I will draw your attention to is on every week you're going to have, over here you'll see that it's written on the fabric, fabrics 1, 2, 4. Oh, if I go down a little bit low, you can see there's fabric 1, that's fabric 2, that's fabric 4, And then the pink fabric on this one is called fabric 3. Now, why are you telling me this, John? I hear you're asking. Because when we wrote the pattern, we decided that the best way of doing it was that if we labeled the fabrics 1, 2, 3, and 4, then hopefully that made a lot more sense for everybody in the process. When you turn to your actual pattern, you will see that I have referred to the pattern as fabric 1. Oh, there we go. So you can see there's fabric 1, and then you've got all the cutting instructions, fabric 1. There's fabric 2, all the cutting instructions, 3 and 4. So you've got all of those available for you and to be able to show you what we're doing. So my top tip with this is whatever colorway you've chosen, fabrics 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the same throughout the whole project. So where it says fabric 1, 2, 3, and 4, snip those off your fabric and attach it to the inside of your pattern. Because some of us don't have time to do the project at the time. And what you do is then, with any project you're doing, I always keep the pattern, the thread, I buy all the fabric in one go. I put it in a bag, the pattern in the bag, and as I'm making it, everything stays in that bag. So that if I ever want to pick up a project, I pick the whole bag up and it's all in there. So doing the same thing by showing what fabric 1, 2, 3, and 4 is on your project is going to make your life a lot easier, especially if you put it down and then come back to it much later on. It's a much, much easier way of doing it. So that's the brights colorway that we've got there. Next we've got the blue colorway, which you can see, this is the, sorry, I'm getting my left and right. So that's the blue colorway that we're doing there. So you're going to get the blue panel there, as well as the block of the week instructions. And then last but certainly most popular, we've got our vintage colorway as well. That's our vintage colorway there. And these are all available on the website, $11.99 for the instructions and the panel, and that's all available for you to go and check out now if you want to, all available for you to do. So what I'm going to show you today is the easiest way I found to cut this out was I cut long strips of literally the whole width of the fabric, because you've got to cut more squares out of one and out of one size than the other. So what I did is I cut a whole strip out of both different sizes that I needed to cut out of the white, and then I cut everything accordingly. It was just a lot easier for me to do it that way. And yeah, it's a lot easier than it looks. It's just one of those ones, you've just got to take your time. And what I do each and every time that I do, sorry, I'm just not getting these. Every time I do this, I ask people to lay the block out, lay out what it's going to look like at the end of the day. And it just makes that whole daunting process of making this block much, much easier, because it's a lot simpler when you've got it laid out. You know exactly what it is that you're doing. And it just, then you do it bit by bit by bit, little bit by little bit, and it just makes your life a lot easier. And I was going to say, hopefully you haven't lost a triangle like I had there. Nothing worse than that. Right, so you'll see that some of these half square triangles are sewn together. I haven't trimmed them because I'm going to have faith in my quarter inch, my scant quarter inch. So I've spoken about a scant quarter inch before, so let me recap that for somebody who hasn't done that before. So I'm going to take this one because it's sewn together a little bit better than the other one. So this is exactly a quarter of an inch. So as you can see, I'm putting my ruler on there, and what you can see is seam allowance for a quarter inch. Quilters use a quarter inch as the seam allowance. So what that means, this stitch line here, you will see that when I put that stitch line against the edge of my ruler, you can see that is exactly a quarter of an inch. So I know that triangle is going to be too small. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I will show you how to fix it, I promise you. But what you do as well, so you'll see on this one, when I put that ruler up, right up against the line there, because of course you won't be having to do this to camera, you'll be able to see that when I put that straight on, that my thread, I'm 1 or 2 threads on this side of the quarter inch line. So I'm going to just hold that there while, Now, I know a lot of you think, oh my goodness, what's the point of that? And I'll tell you why. Is that when you, so what that means is, so this is 1/4 of an inch. When I press that open, so you can see there, when I fold that over, when you fold it, you've got 2 or 3 threads in the actual folding over process. So what happens is when I press that open, where I've got the exact 1/4 inch on this one, when I fold that open, the 2 threads there on both sides of that will mean that this is probably 1/16 too small for what you need. Now, that doesn't sound like a huge amount, but if you think about it, that you've got 1/16 and you've got 6 things across, that's going to be 1/4 of an inch. So your block will add up, and every time you have got that where you're not doing a scant 1/4 inch, it means that that 1/16 will add up along the block. So if you've got 6 across the way, that'll be 6/16, which will be just over 1/4 of an inch. It'll be 3/8 of an inch. So we don't want you to be ending up with the blocks being too small or too big. And if they are, do not worry. That's the next week. The fun comes in week 10, where I can show you, in week 12, where I can show you how we fix that. So we've got a double whammy next week, block 12 and borders and sashings. Really excited for that. But the good thing is once you press this, you'll see that this will be slightly too small, but I'll show you how you fix that later. Whereas this one, when I press this open, it is the exact size you want it to be, because you've used that scant 1/4 inch. So just make sure that you, if you don't understand the scant 1/4 inch, I've explained it in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Go through, watch the videos and see how you see if that makes a little bit more sense to you. So what you'll see now is I have sewn all the half square triangles on this half of the block, but I haven't sewn them on that half of the block. So I'm going to finish making this half of the block first, but I'm going to first show you how to do your 1/4 inch seams. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to line your triangles up over there and over there, making sure that they meet perfectly. In a perfect world, they all line up exactly right, and I obviously was cutting quite well yesterday because that lines up perfectly. So what I do now is I know that on this Janome that my 1/4 inch seam is when my needle position is 5.5. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move my fabric over 1 or 2 threads across just to make sure that I've got that scant 1/4 inch. And I'm going to try and find, there we go, there's my pedal. Now, everything is on the bias when you're sewing here, so I try not to hold the fabric very much. I just gently let the machine do what it needs to do. And there we go. Now, if you want to be pedantic and you want to check it, I'm doing a little dance now because I got it right. So you can see that that's exactly what I'm looking for. That's lined up there, and you can see that that's just that little bit too short to meet up with my 1/4 inch. So I'm 100% happy with that. That's fabulous. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And then what I do is, because I'm using polyester thread, I set my seams, and all that does is it just tightens the thread a little bit, and it makes your seam a little bit more secure. Now, because everything's on the bias here, I'm not pressing, I'm not ironing, I'm just literally putting the nose of my iron across that seam, and I'm holding it down. I'm doing nothing more, just holding it down. And there we go. Then I'm going to retrim this down to the size per the pattern. Yes, you'll buy the pattern, you'll see the size. Oh my goodness, I don't need to trim that at all. That's perfect. Excuse me while I get very excited about the fact my seams line up perfectly for a change. It doesn't happen that way every week, I can assure you. So there we go, and you're going to follow the pattern on steps 1, 2, and 3, making all of your half square triangles. So that's steps 1, 2, and 3. I suggest a nice little Netflix something on the box. You just watch it and it goes through the process and chain piece a lot of them and get them done. That's the way we do it. So then you're going to do step 2. So step 2 is you're going to attach this square to this half square triangle. And as I've said, I'm only doing half the block because it's exactly the same. It's a mirror image, just upside down. And this week I've been clever. I've decided I was going to do contrasting thread so you can actually see what it is that I'm doing. Now I press my seams open each time I go. And there we go. So then I put it back into the block where I'm going to be positioning it. Next bit is the step 5. I'm sewing those 2 triangles together there. Half square triangle, should I say? Now when I'm doing this in my studio, what I do is I don't like walking, that's why I've got a little rounder than most of you. I then just sit in my little chair, I cut on this side, sew, press. And I swivel. I don't walk, I swivel. We all do it. We've got our little cocoon that we work in. It works brilliantly. Right, so I've sewn those 2 together. Oh, I've got threads. So I've sewn those 2 together. Now I'm going to put this bit onto here. So many of you asked me how it is I get my points to line up. And what am I looking for to get my points to line up? So this is actually a really, really good example of what it is I need to do to get my points to line up. So what I'm looking to do is to have that beautiful little point there meet that little point there. And I want them to just gently touch each other. So what I do is I put these together. Now I press my seams open. Now I don't pin, as many of you know. If you are going to pin, what you're going to do is you're going to push a pin through this side over here. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, crying out loud. Live telly, what could possibly go wrong? There we go. And then this one over here. Now what I've done is I've put a pin through where I want my needle to hit on this side and where I want my needle to hit on that side. So what I've done is I've lined that up perfectly, got that nice, and this pin is now vertical with the table, horizontal with the table. And once I've got that all lined up, I'm then going to check that these seams over here line up. And the reason is that you don't want to have your points lining up, but your seams going a bit squiggly. You want that to be perfectly straight. I know it feels like you've got to grow 3 different hands doing this process. This is why I don't like pinning. So I do that, and because when I move my pin, the fabric will move. What I do is I hold this nice and firmly with my finger, and then I move the pin, and then I put it through the fabric. And you can see I'm a little bit off center there, but as long as I'm a little bit off center on that side as well, it should line up. Now, every time I have pinned this through this whole block of the month process, I have not hit my point. So I'm hoping today, on that very seam, I'm going to change that. What do you think? What's your bet? I can see people at home going, nope, he's missed it. You all know that dance. Look, it's perfect. I'm very excited. That actually was the exactly what we're looking for, that exact point there. So what you're looking for there is you can see that that has met perfectly on the line. That's lined up. This is lined up. That is exactly what you're looking for. First time in history pins have ever worked for me. So now we've made that. The next thing we're going to do is... I'm looking at my instructions and thinking, hang on, something's not right here. There we go. Oh, there they are. Sorry, I knew what it was, but I was just thinking, hang on, that's not the right way. I'm not looking in the right place. So what you're doing is you're doing these 2 together and then these 2 together. Now, I know that those are the steps, but when you get used to the pattern and you're making a few of them, you will be able to chain piece these like this. If you've never chained piece before, what that means is that you're putting 2 different sections through the machine, one after the other, and you don't break your thread. And you know what? I'm going to be a rebel, and I'm going to do the next piece as well. Because I know this bit goes together, so I'm doing that at the same time. Brilliant. So I know that bit's going there. I know that bit's going there. And now I'm going to set my seams. Now with this, you'll notice I'm pressing everything open. What I would advise you is, because if you don't normally press your seams open, try it. Try it for this project and see what you think. Might not work for you, might work for you. You'll be able to see the benefit. If you don't press your seams to the right, to the dark side, give that a go. Try it this time. Press it to the dark side. See what you think. I think it's always important, especially with blocks. I think blocks is a nice way of trying something a little bit new, a little bit different that you normally do, because it's only a small project and you're able to then decide, does that work for me, does it not, and then draw your own conclusion as to what works best. As a long arm quilter, I do prefer people to press their seams open, only because it just makes a little bit of a flatter block. And by making a flatter block, it just means when I come to quilt it, it's a lot easier to quilt. So there we go. That is the next section. So you can see I've made that. Now I'm putting that to that. That's what I'm doing over there. Now, if any of you have been looking and watching our show earlier on today, you'll be able to see the extra wide backing that we had. Specifically the navy, not because of any other reason, but the navy really, really works very well with our brights and our blue collection, whilst our cream and our white works incredibly well with the vintage collection. The only reason I'm mentioning it is I don't actually think that we're going to be doing any backing bundles for this, but we are doing our sashings and borders. So you might want to consider with the backing of this quilt, the quilt size is 82.5 by 66, so you would easily have enough fabric to be able to make, to do the backing using our 108-inch wide fabric. And you can see the blue, this is the navy, you can see the navy works incredibly well with this backing here, but equally with the blue, that works really, really well with that as well. So I know that because we've had a couple of people message in about backings. What are we doing about backings? At the minute, we're not doing backing fabric in the same fabric, but do check out the website. That may change, but it's unlikely. But do have a little look, because these extra wide backings work very, very well for this quilt. It's just something to think about, because it's, I know I have had a couple of questions this week about the backings, which I love the fact that people are that far ahead and thinking that far ahead. It's great. Now what I'm doing now is, you've seen that I've done that bit and that bit, I'm sewing them together. Now I'm using the bright bundle here today. The vintage is always our most popular, which is wonderful. And now I'm making progress along the way here. I'm just looking at the time. I've probably got enough time to make the whole block. Shall we do a little bit of a power play and see how quickly I can go? I kind of feel like we need that music. You know when they do the Lone Ranger with a little, maybe in Africa we didn't have much television when I was growing up. We had the Lone Ranger who used to do that song, and I'm not going to sing it for fear of copyright or, oh, and I've just snapped my thread, of course I have. Jenny Raymond, please don't be watching when I'm bringing this through the wrong side, sorry. Every time I pull my thread out through a machine like that, I hear Jenny's voice going, "You can't do that, you damage the machine." And I always feel terribly guilty. That's it. Now, in my ear, because we've got something called TalkBack, which not many of you know what that is. So in my ear, I have a little speakerphone with people talking to me all the time, which is not distracting in the slightest. But now I've got the music of the Lone Ranger in my ear, so it's going to make me go even faster. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And the good thing is I sang that so badly we won't have to pay any royalties to anybody because no one has a clue what that is. They're saying that performance was by the John Cole Morgan Orchestra. No one would want that. I feel like I've just set a timer for myself now. Well, I'm going to trust my 1/4-inch seam and I'm going to accept that that's going to work. Three more half-square triangles to go. What could possibly go wrong? Now this is what you can see is I'm chain piecing all in one go, and as I said to you earlier, it's one of those wonderful, mindful ways of just being able to sit and focus and sew, have something on in the background. I usually pop a Real Housewives or somewhere terribly trashy in the background. Sorry, Joe. Almost finished. He's very upset now because the music's been playing and he's like, oh. I love the fact that Joe was able to find that so quickly as well. It's my childhood in one noise clip right there. So it's not the actual sewing, it's the pressing of these open. Now, you see, for myself, I don't know what everybody else listens to, but for myself, I like audiobooks because I find it terribly indulgent when I'm in my 40s and I can have somebody read to me. I think that's really lovely. But I belong to 2 book clubs, and one of the ladies, she's really lovely. We've been friends since we were 13, 14. And she's got this wonderful disapproval of audiobooks, and she says, it's not reading. I'm like, well, it kind of is. She says, no, it's not reading. And she's not wrong, but I just love that because there's this long debate about whether you're not allowed to comment on the book if you've had it as an audiobook, which I find very, very fun. I love audiobooks because also with the amount of driving I do every day coming into the studio, it's 4 hours to the studio every day. So I've always got an audiobook of some kind on in the car. And I must say, it does depend on who's reading the book to you, whether you're actually going to enjoy the book or not. Because there's some amazing narrators, and they could actually just read the telephone directory to you, and you'd be quite happy just listening to it. What does everybody else listen to when they do their sewing? Come on, message in. Tell us what you're listening to at the minute, what you do. I love it. My friend Angie, that I was saying that she's been quilting for 45 years, she's a massive Alice Cooper fan. Not what you would expect at all. So it's whenever I sew with her at her house, I love going there and I'm like, darling, do you mind if we listen to some music that's not quite so angry? And she just looks at me and says, grow up, get in with it. I'm like, okay, no. It is, it's like a little mosh pit. Love it. But she is very good though, because whenever you go and sew at her house, you get an exceptionally strong gin and tonic as you walk in the door. So you have to make sure that you're there for many, many hours for the alcohol to have worn off before you drive home. Back in the day, we could still go to people's houses. It'll come. We're almost there. I mean about my ironing, not anything else. We're almost there. Oh, pressing. Right, so now I've done that. And I'm going to just very quickly pop these together like I did before. I was looking at it and thinking, oh, I don't want to make half a block. And looking at the clock, I think I can make it. I think I can make it. Oh, is that right? Yes. You see, you always check it because the number of times I've sewn it the wrong way round. Now, I know we're going to get a question from people. I've sewn 2 squares together, and I know someone is going to ask, why have you not made it a rectangle? And I'll tell you exactly why. Are you listening? Are you ready? To make your life difficult. No, it was truly because I made it, did the pattern, made the block, and thought, that was a bit silly. I should have had a rectangle there. So apologies about that. But it's more seams to line up, and it's more practice. Oh, we've had a message in from Leslie. Morning, Leslie. Oh, Leslie grew up in Africa as well. Oh, thinking of Bonanza. What a good one. Oh, I like that. Hang on, I've done this the wrong way around. No, I haven't. There we go. I do love that because I think a lot more people grew up in Africa than I think it is. I just assumed I was the only one. Oh, we've had a message in from Julie. Morning, Julie. She listens to Radio 4 dramas. Ooh. Catching up on who's... G. Newman's The Corrupted. Oh, that sounds exciting. Oh, we've had another message in, and that one's saying... From Sharon. Oh, Harry Potter audiobooks. That's a good one. I watched Stephen Fry did this podcast about when he was reading the Harry Potter books, and he was struggling over the words of Harry pocketed it, and I just did the whole thing that he did, where he stumbled over those words, and he asked J.K. Rowling if she would change the words, and all she would do is go, no, which I love. I think that's brilliant. But she was really crafty after that because she knew Stephen Fry was going to do her narration of all the books. She put Harry pocketed it in all of the books subsequently, which I thought was very clever. Right, so we're almost there. That didn't take that long. See, took me 7 minutes to do all of that. You should be way on your way. Oh, I've suddenly got some steam. I don't know where that came from. I didn't turn that on. Right, so always lay your block out and check that it's right. So I'm now going to sew those 2 together there. And for me, you'll find on my patterns, I don't have a routine. I usually try and work from the middle out, but it doesn't always work that way. What I try and do is break it down into really, really easy, bite-sized chunks that doesn't make you scared. Oh, and of course I did. Of course it did. Of course it did. Oh, I'm going to do a purple bobbin now. Only because it's all I have. Now, if you haven't joined the Block of the Week yet, don't worry, you can start anytime you like. We've got a bundle available to you which has got all 11 weeks of the quilt. So you'll be able to go and join in with us at any time you like. And if anybody is on our social media pages, you'll be able to see all the wonderful blocks that have been made by people so far, and it's a really great way of being able to engage with your fellow sewers. And all of the individual blocks are also available on the website, so if you didn't want to make a whole quilt, then you can go through and you can actually do maybe just use 6 blocks and make a quilt from that. You can do it how you like. It's what best works for you because it's your quilt. Now I'm going to ask you very kindly not to look very closely at this seam because this is really not my best seam at all. Oh, we've had a message in from Sue. Morning, Sue. She's very excited about Handy Quilter joining us at 10 o'clock. Me too. Oh, she's never seen long arm quilting in action before. You're in for a treat. Now, just a little tip over here. When you're trying to match, when you sew these two together, this is the center of your block. This is the most important bit possible. So what I do here is I put these on top of each other. I fold this back to check that my line is in a straight line. And when I've got that ready, I then sew the rest together because that is the most important one to line up. I'm probably going to miss it, and if you miss it, it doesn't matter. No one's ever given a quilt back because your points don't meet. And if they do, you don't need that type of negativity in your life. And send the quilt to me. But I have to say, we've had some wonderful pictures and images of people's different takes on the quilts and the blocks going together. It's been really, really nice to watch and to see. It's been great. Oh, we've had a few messages in about what people are listening to when they're quilting. Caroline's messaged in. Morning, Caroline. She listens to her sister in Derby. Oh, she's saying her sister's laugh makes her laugh while she's sewing. What a lovely thing. That's wonderful. Her laugh is as good as any audiobook. I love that. That is really good. And of course, I don't know, the gods are with me today. Voila, it worked. I'm not going to look at that. Boink, boink, boink. So we've had a question in about block of the week. Yes. In from Susan. So many people ask this question, which I love getting asked this question. What foot am I using when I'm piecing all my work? Now, you can use a 1/4 inch foot. I personally don't use a 1/4 inch foot because I find people rely on the 1/4 inch foot quite heavily, which there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that if you're using the 1/4 inch foot, sometimes you actually press against that little drop down edge bit. I don't know what it's called. The guard, that's it, the 1/4 inch foot guard. A lot of people do press against that, and that does distort over time. So for me, I just use my normal A foot. Oh, and now I've just dropped it on the floor. I just use a normal A foot. Do you want to do that over there? So I just use a normal A foot, and then when I'm doing my piecing, I line my foot, I line my foot up with the edge of the fabric up to the edge of the foot, and then I move my needle across. So I use an A foot, and I always have. It doesn't mean that you using a 1/4 inch foot is right or wrong. It's just what works for me. In my head, I like to be able to visually see what it is that I'm doing on my sewing. I don't rely on the foot, because often the foot, if your needle's in the wrong position, the foot, it's going to be wrong. I just think that for myself, it works better using an A foot. But a 1/4 inch foot is very good. My only advice for the 1/4 inch foot is don't press against the guard because you will then just push the guard out of place over time. And sometimes you don't get a scant 1/4 inch using the guard as well, the 1/4 inch foot either. I don't know how the steam has just come to life on this, but there we go. Oh, there we go. I can turn the steam off there. I actually bought one of these yesterday. I was so excited. I went out shopping for the first time in months. It was wonderful. I bought things I bought 2 irons yesterday. I don't need 2 irons, but I bought 2 irons. 2 presses. That's quite right, Joe. Quite right. You see, I get it wrong every time, and I know Andrew's probably listening to this and going, see, I told you you bought an iron. Now what you're going to do is you're going to sew these 2 triangles onto the side of each of those flying geese that you've just done. So again, I'm going to chain piece these. Does that work? And now I know at this time of the show I'm going to be like, oh, I'm regretting doing the whole block now because of time. So all I'm doing now is I'm going in the order of the pattern, and I'm sorry, that was just concentrating on what I was doing then. I just forgot that I was actually on television trying to do this for you. So apologies for the silence that you had then. All I'm trying to do now is to make sure that I get these on the correct way. Normally because I sew them on the wrong way quite a lot and then think to myself, oh, you should have paid more attention. But do make sure that when you're putting things on, you put them back in the order that they're meant to go, just to make sure you get the direction of your triangles correct, because there's nothing that can fix that other than unpicking. So all I've done over here is I've sewn the pink triangles onto onto both sides of these 4. Right, and now I am going on a few steps. I've got to sew these 2 squares onto either side of 2 of them. So that's proper chain piecing when you're getting giant chunks like that ready to go. And all I'm doing now is I'm sewing the 2 squares onto 2 sides of these to get that laying out. Now, at this point, when you've sewn everything together, if there are still bits on there, you've done something wrong. So go back and check which is wrong, because I've done it before and I've got 1/2 triangle left over. And I think to myself, how on earth did I do that? And what I'd done is I'd sewn 2 of the coloured bits. I'd picked up 2 of the coloured bits, and the coloured bits were sewn together. So I had 3 pieces of fabric sewn together in error. It happens to everybody. We've all done it. Oh, Susan says, thank you very much for explaining about the feet. That's lovely to hear back from you, Susan. Thank you. Another Sue's message then. Oh, she puts a bit of opera on. Oh, I like that. Otherwise, a bit of classical works. Oh, I like that idea. I love the opera idea. I love that. Like having a bit of that idea. I find I end up with screaming matches with my Alexa when I've got it on, because if I get bored of the audiobooks, I'm like, Alexa, play me some music. Sorry, and everybody's Alexa's just kicked off. So, so I just find that that's quite funny, what she thinks I'd listen to. Now, as you can see, even though I'm in a rush, I'm pressing my seams open. It just makes that flatter block, and it just works that little bit easier on your blocks. Just taking that time to press it, it works very, very well. Oh, I love the fact Joe's actually been able to find me on the overhead over here. I thought I could hide on the side of the table, but no, there are cameras everywhere. That sounds... So in my talk pack, Joe went, everywhere. which is not creepy at all. It was Joe's birthday last week. How old? Oh, all downhill from there. 28. You remember those times, 28. Scary thing is I do remember 28. Still think 26 was the best. 26, you're not too old, you're not too young, you don't have to be responsible, you can still do naughty things and silly things and get away with it. I am not repeating what Joe just said. On legal reasons, I am not allowed to say that. I have no doubt a lawsuit would ensue. It's that cackle that you can hear now. It's wonderful. So there we go. You've now just got 4 pieces left to sew together. Now, come on, that wasn't hard, was it? So this now, it's not difficult. It just takes that little bit of concentration. So the points you're looking to match are that one, and that one. So all you're going to do, and you've got 2 over here as well. So all you're going to do is you're going to pop those over, and exactly like where we lined these up, you're going to do exactly the same thing. Just take it nice and slow. I don't pin. If you want to pin, you saw me pin earlier. Make sure you hold the fabric with your forefinger and your thumb. Hold it, get it nice and ready where you want it to be. I have no doubt that my good luck is ended and I'm not going to hit any points here. But hey, it doesn't matter. Oh, that one's requiring some severe tugging. There we go. And finished is better than perfect. Oh, I'm happy with that. Neil's stick just fell on the floor. Still not quite sure why I got a stick from Neil, but there we go. Thank you for my stick. Oh, that's a good one. Neil was giving me a bit of stick. There we go. So you can see that that actually didn't press out. That didn't work badly at all. My pressing is not working very well, and I hadn't pressed my seams open. And I know we all do it because we all look at it and go, nope, that's not right. So if you do end up with that, just go back, press your seams open or press your seams a bit harder. Maybe turn that steam on and give it a bit of a blast. Ah, look at that. That is so much better. So exactly the same over there. You're going to now line everything up as best you can. And if you don't get it right, please don't be despondent. Just know that next time it'll be better. You just do the best you can. It's only fabric. What could possibly go wrong? And I definitely missed that point. Oh well. Ooh, I missed that quite a lot. Oh well. That one, it won't matter if how I press it. That ain't coming out. Oh, there we go. Yeah, and there's definitely not enough time to unpick and get that on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you very quickly. If you did want to unpick and do this seam, I'll show you exactly how to do that, because unpicking the whole thing, it's silly. You're going to distort the fabric, you're going to damage the fabric, and you really don't need to. So I'll show you the best way of fixing that. Now, you've seen me sew the sides on here. These are exactly the same. I'm not going to show you those because it's quite simple how you do it. You know what you're doing on this. You've advanced so much on it, you don't need to worry. So let's say you can see over here. Now I know you're all going to be going, gosh, my seam is not out at all, but I'll show you here. You can see that my line here isn't lined up perfectly with the line here. Now that is the level of, if you want to fix it, what my suggestion would be is do not unpick the whole line, because that bit there lines up relatively okay. That bit is perfect. So if you wanted to do it, I would unpick from about here and then go all the way down and do it. But that isn't too much of a problem for me. This one would bother me. So I would only unpick from here all the way down, or I would only unpick from about there to there, because you're talking about 2 threads of fabric there. You can easily just unpick from there to there and manipulate your fabric along the way. So I wouldn't advise you to unpick the whole seam. I know a lot of people do, but once you've done it, your fabric will, because this is on the bias, you're going to distort your fabric. And it's actually, if you are going to unpick and redo it, cut it again and do it again. Because every one of you who've unpicked any form of triangle, you can see that once you pressed it, you've set it, and then if you unpick that and then reset it, it's going to distort the fabric, and it's just, in my opinion, not worth the effort of unpicking it, because you're not going to get as crisp a finish on it. So for me, if you're going to unpick a little section just to manipulate it down, great, do that. But the more you unpick it, the more you press it, the more you fiddle with it, the more the fabric is going to bend and distort, and it's just going to look terrible. So just, if you're going to redo that section, you've got so much fabric, cut new pieces and go from there. So that's it. You're going to sew that bit onto there, and that is your block 11. So let me show you again what you're going to get. Each one of these bundles, and you see I've got 2 squares left over. No clue where they go. Must have recut that somewhere, but the block's gone together, so it's fine. So every single one of you are loving this vintage colorway. That is that quilt over here. It's such a lovely colorway there. So you're making block 11, 1 left, and then the sashings and the borders. So that's the bundle you're going to get. You're going to get this little bundle, which is the panel, and you're getting the instructions for $11.99 of the vintage colorway. Let me show you where block 11 comes in on the slide that you're going to see now. Oh, there's our block 11. Isn't that lovely? That's what it's meant to look like. So that's our vintage colorway then. Next we're going to do, is it blues? Do blues next. So this is our blue collection over here. You can see that's our colorway there in the blue. Lovely, lovely combination of colors there. That's our second favorite colorway. You're going to get the wonderful set of instructions and the panel. Everybody who's made one of these so far knows there is so much fabric left over at the end of it. There's a huge amount left over, so we're all looking at projects. What can we do with them? What can we do with them? So you've got lots of fabric left over. Really, really nice pattern there. Nice and simple. Lots of pictures to be able to show you what you're doing, and that's what the finished block for the blue colorway is going to look like. And then last but certainly not least is the Brights colorway that I've just done for you now. That panel and the pattern available also for $11.99. And that's the quilt behind me here, which I think is a lovely colorway. And then the block looks like this when it's finished, and there we go. So next week we've got block 12 and borders and sashings. Really, really excited. So we've got a 2-hour special next week for the block of the week to get that all done and dusted.